I have a very short talk on accelerating the cloud adoption. And we at Cisco are doing a lot of work around this, and I wanted to share two key aspects about cloud adaptation in the industry and relate that back to the government and how to bring about transparency and control within the government systems. And I'm just going to take about 10 minutes to do that, and at the end of my presentation, if time permits, my colleagues will also do a small demonstration on education-enabled development that can happen, and we're going to do a small demonstration on that. Now, cloud is a reality. We heard some speakers before mention about cloud-enabled data centers and so on. And all of us, in some form or the other, just like we use Facebook and some of these other techniques, other social apps, we also bound to use some of these public cloud, applications. And perhaps, if I take one example particularly, Dropbox is one example where 98% of their users it's a public cloud, and 98% of the users are on their free service. And there are a lot of data in customer organizations and of personal nature and of confidential nature sort of sits there. So I just want to dwell upon two aspects of cloud adaptations. What are the challenges and how we are helping clients accelerate this. Now these are two words that I want us to just focus on. One is on shadow IT. Now a while ago we heard some open-ended questions around security, around visibility of data and so on. And we believe what's happening is that there is actually a shadow IT which has come up in every organization. And what that means is that there is amount of money being spent on the name of IT, but it's actually not under the control of IT. That money is actually being spent outside the perimeter of IT and it's being used for IT purposes. Now about 10 years ago, when we defined an IT budget, right, over 80 to 90% of that was under the control of the IT department, and they knew what they were doing with that money. With the adaptation of technologies like cloud and so on, what is happening is that shift is happening where these budgets are with the business groups, and business groups are spending it and not necessarily with the knowledge and acknowledgement of the IT industry, of the IT departments. So within Cisco, we like to look at this shadow IT from three different aspects. One is, first and foremost, is visibility. Do we know within our organization, do we have a visibility of who is using what within our organization, right? Whether it is the free clouds, whether it is the clouds within the state data centers, applications within the state data centers, whether it is across organizations, within departments, across departments, do we have that visibility? Now, Cisco IT, that is the Cisco CTO office, estimates that over 5x or 10x of IT budgets are typically purchased without the IT services being involved in those purchases. And this trend is going ahead. Gartner predicts that from a cost perspective, right, by 2020, 90% of the spending so-called on IT will be outside of the IT department purview, right? And this is because of the adaptation of some of these technologies, particularly the cloud technology. Now, risk is something that, a while ago, my friend talked about, threats that happened, exposures that happened because of, websites being compromised. He mentioned Sony. Perhaps there are many more examples where we can refer to. We have perhaps all of us seen presentations on the internet shared on SlideShare, for example, right? And you would find sometimes even sensitive data sits around, gets compromised and gets shared on these public websites. As a matter of fact, I can tell you that within Cisco, we have a set of analysts who are sitting and constantly monitoring these particular, common share sites to look for confidential data and sometimes customer sensitive data that might be, put up by someone, and we take immediate action to sort of get that removed from that website. Now, so risk is certainly getting associated, and it is being estimated that, again by Gartner, by 2016, and 2016 is not too far a landscape, right, that over 50% of the data that companies would have, right, would be stored on a public cloud, right? Think about it. This might be a reality already in your organizations, in many government departments that I have had the chance to interact with. It is not uncommon to see, data being shared on public website. I think a while ago, sir mentioned about compromises on passwords, compromises on even second level and third level security in terms of pins. I mean, that's level of data being shared within the organizations and now extending that onto the public cloud as well. So what is it that we can do about this? Now, the way we handle these challenges is that we help customers identify, help create that visibility within the organization. We can help create that visibility of who is using what in that public domain, who is using what within your data center, within your private cloud. We can help create that visibility at a user level, at an application level, so that you have the ability now to identify, right, and perhaps also govern some of these cloud providers that you may have an official relationship with, or it may be a user within your department that has forward gone ahead and made a relationship. The other aspect is around cost. With this kind of decentralization and with this kind of projection on how costs will shift away from the IT department, one thing is for sure is that the organization's ability to centrally purchase a service also sort of gets compromised. Now, in order to be able to take control of that, the first and foremost thing is we need to understand the landscape. We need to understand where is it and who is using what kind of services, how much are they being paid for, and how can we consolidate that. So to bring about that visibility at a cost level is also a service that we can provide that will help our customers like yourselves to be able to better control the costs and be able to better if required to have third-party service provider engagements to be able to better manage and negotiate the prices with them. The third aspect, perhaps I don't have to beat on this one, and that is on security, right? How secure is the data, especially the one that goes on cloud, ones that get posted either by desire or by mistake onto public clouds? How secure is that? How much is your data compromised? And once again, here is an opportunity where we can help analyze both within the data center and right down to the desktop level, up to the network level. We can analyze the security of the data and see how much of that is compromised. Get you a full comprehensive report of data within your organization. And that information, these three combined information, we believe can be used to establish a governance model. And if I go back to the questions that were being posed, I think the overall question that was being posed is, do we have a strong enough governance in the way we use IT, right? In the way we are consuming IT, if you will, right? And this is important not only from those questions point of view. I also heard in this on this forum about future projects, right? Projects that are now going from pilot phase to phase 1 and phase 2. That means more and more dependency on IT, and therefore more and more need to get into the aspect of a governance model around how IT gets consumed, right? And we believe we can offer a mature governance model around this. And we begin this in 4 stages in any organization, whether it is local within the data center, or it is across multiple data centers, or it could be between your local private data center and a public cloud service provider. And this goes into 4 stages. From an ad hoc cloud users, we get you an analysis of your complete profile of your organization, how that happens. We get you visibility of the cloud usage within your organization, right? Right down to the user level. We could break it down to an application level to see how those applications are happening on the cloud. And we could also then do a cost and risk mitigation analysis based on that data to help you better optimize your cost within the organization, be able to drive more with the limited budgets that IT gets. And finally, and most important at the end of this is you get a completely optimized IT governance model where the IT and the line of business are sort of aligned as far as the cloud deployments are concerned. So this is one factor that I wanted to leave as a thought, considering the open questions that were asked and also considering some of the future projects that were being talked about, that we think we are today ready to help customers do that, and we're doing that for many customers with this particular model. The other thing that I want to touch upon is something new. Something rather new, and that's called Intracloud. We call it Intracloud. Now, what's Intracloud? Now, Intracloud is fundamentally about workload mobility, right? Some people like to call it as workload portability, right? Because in today's world, it's all about workload, right? And you have your data center or private cloud where you sort of have fixed workloads, right? And you can do a better control and compliance over them because that's your fixed environment, right? And then you have the public clouds where you sort of put elastic workloads that keep on varying, right? And where the key objective is to quickly ramp up your services and make those services available. But we think what's a reality today is the need for a hybrid cloud. And this hybrid cloud is one that supports mobility between a data center and a service provider, right? And that could be a contracted service provider, right? So between your private data center and a service provider, or within a private data center and let's say a centralized data center for the government, that could be, for instance, established at an IC central office, right? So the ability to be able to move workload across them, the ability to be able to port your applications from one cloud to another without having to reconfigure the whole setup, without having to re-engineer the whole database and so on, is one of the activities that we believe we want to achieve out of this. So what do customers need when they look at workload portability? So when we look at customers who are looking at workload portability between private and public clouds, or sort of a hybrid cloud, if you will, right? So first and foremost thing that what came up was it should be an open solution, right? Should be based on open standards, right? And should be able to interoperate between, there should be no vendor lock-in, and I should have the ability to choose between multiple service providers and multiple platforms for the cloud if required, and move workload across these platforms. Second and foremost, second most of course is the security, right? And this is the security at a connection level, security at a data level, right? Multi-tenancy is a word that you would hear very often in cloud environments, right? How do you ensure application security in a multi-tenant environment? And then right down to the wire, the network wire, can my data go on a secure network, right? That's an important aspect of this. And then application transparency. From a workload mobility point of view, it's about application transparency. Today I may be on a one cloud or virtualization platform. Should I want to move my workload from that to another one, I should be able to do that transparently. And the good news is that all of this is possible, and this is possible through the Intracloud application. Now, today's clouds are, in a way, you could call them proprietary, you could call them custom-based, or you could call them custom design, right? And therefore, if you look at them, they sort of have a lock-in mechanism. That means you could only go to that particular vendor and take the services and continue to remain with that service provider and have no choice. Or if you have chosen a platform within your data center, you are bound to remain on that platform. Now, with this Intracloud, what we are ensuring is that you have a more choice of service providers that you can sort of pick on. What you can also do is you can also ensure that you do not have any lock-in as far as hypervisor and virtualization is concerned. And we also do end-to-end security on this. So here's an example. From a private data center cloud, right, with the Intracloud in place, we can deploy that service, that same application on a public cloud itself. And you can then vary and choose which service provider you want for this activity. Some use cases for this. We have test and development as one use case that you could look at within your organization, right? You can look at shadow IT control for this. You can use this for capacity augmentation. You are going from pilot to phase 1 and phase 2. For capacity augmentation, this can be an option. And for disaster recovery, of course, where you want to build a disaster recovery facility, this could be another way to expand on to disaster recovery for the organization. So with that, thank you very much. And you want to come in?
Just, sure. I'm a part of Cisco. My name is Ajay Krishnan. I work in a group called Inclusive Growth. Since we have very limited time, I'll just take 30 seconds of your time. We just want to show you a very brief video of what is happening, how we are using technology to change the lives of people, right? We are doing today in Inclusive Growth, we are taking technology to the rural parts of the country on issues that impact us as citizens the most: education, skills development, and healthcare. So here is a class that is happening by a training partner called GTD. They are based out of Pune. These are classes happening at various ITIs in Kerala. So out of the 72 ITIs in Kerala, 34 of them have already been connected. Between the classrooms where students are being taught and youth are being skilled, more than 7 lakh student hours of teaching and training have been accomplished. So we just wanted to show you a live class that is happening right now. I think that's all the time I have, but I'll be happy to explain. We are across about 9 to 10 states in the country. In this very state of Bihar, we have been doing nurses training across 10 nursing schools and colleges, where instructors from Patna and Calcutta, from the state nodal centers, are teaching these pre-service students nursing. One very remarkable result that is achieved, places where there was very low pass percentage has gone up to 72%. And that training is being done by Johns Hopkins. They have got an NGO in Bihar or all over India called Japaigo, which does the training. Like this, we can bring in multiple partners and take technology to the rural parts of the country and make a difference where it's really required. Thank you.